Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Koibu's Corner. This week brought to you by the surrounding light. It blinds us and it envelops us. It's been a while, and that's because I got married, and then I had to pack up my house, and then I had to move to Vietnam, and then I had to. Then the sharks ate the undersea cables, and then when they was finally fixed, my hotel didn't have good enough internet, so we had to move to a new place, and then we had to unpack, and yada yada yada. So here we are finally, 2 months later, with our next episode of Koibu's Corner. This week, we are going to be talking about how to get the DM on your side. And this is very similar to the episode that we did 2 episodes ago about how to incept ideas into your DM, but on a broader, more general level. So, first things first, how do you get the DM on your side? Well, the overarching idea here is that we want to be working, in order for the DM to work with you, you must work with the DM. And in order to do that, we kind of have to just roll with the punches, and we have to stop our bitching as players. Because, let's be honest, the players start fights. The DM does not start fights. The DM will say, you can't do that. You can do this. And the players will say, why not? That's unfair. I don't like the way that you're doing this. You're not fair. You are, something. And the players will accuse the DM of taking things personally or whatnot. And regardless of whether or not that's true, the players are the ones starting the fights. So if you want to have a good relationship with your DM where your DM isn't like nickeling and diming you and like making sure that your weight is always right and, complaining or stopping you from doing things that you feel that you should be able to do, first you and me and us as players, we need to step back and just stop fighting with the DM over most of the issues. So step number one, roll with the punches. The DM says there's no money on those goblins that you killed. Be like, all right, there's no money. That's fine. And keep going. Don't argue about it. Don't question it. Don't be like, what? That's ridiculous. Instead, be like, oh, there's no money on those goblins. I wonder what that means. And maybe like talk about it with the players. Why this thing that you don't understand, or what this thing you don't understand could mean. And if the DM is actually being an asshole, and you're like, oh, maybe these goblins don't have money because they're, really poor, and that's why they're attacking us is because they're hungry and starving. They don't have any money, and the DM will be like, "Fuck! Now I have to explain why that these goblins don't have money, and I can't just tell them this, but now I have to explain it in game." Or if you're like, "Oh, well, maybe they don't have money because they're advanced scouts for an army, and they're not like going to just give away their wealth or something." The DM will have to react to the things you say. So don't just be like, "That's not right. They should have this," rather than making like declarations and arguing. Try and look at the things that you dislike or that surprise you or that don't seem like they are right as facets of the world and facets of the game. Be like, ooh, I wonder what this actually means. Does that make sense? In the same line, when something unfair happens or something that seems unfair, like maybe you're trying to hide from someone and you've got a pretty good hide check, and so you like hop into a barrel and like put the lid over you and you roll like a 30 or a 35 on your hide check. And then the DM's like, oh yeah, he totally like lifts up the barrel and like stabs you with the sword. And you're like, what? That's not fair. That's totally ridiculous. Blah, 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 blah. And you start like, you get that. I really wanted to pass this. That's not fair moment. Just accept your fate. That's happened. It's cool. If the DM is going to have some guy like find you even when you thought you were hidden, even when you were pretty sure you were hidden, maybe there's something at play here that you don't understand. Or maybe the DM's actually being an asshole, but if he's going to be an asshole, arguing about it's not going to change anything. So just accept it and roll with it. And as you accept these things and as you kind of work with the DM and not argue against them or complain to them, you're going to find that the DM is a lot more chill with you. And when you're like, oh man, I think I'm like 1 pound overweight on my gear, the DM will be like, that's 1 pound, don't worry about it. Or, oh, that's a minor issue, it's fine. Or if you're trying to hide, you're like, oh, I really want to hide, blah, blah, blah. And where previously the DM might have said, well, just give me a hide check. In this situation, like, oh, well, give me a hide check. Or actually, you could do this other little thing, and they might give you a little bit of leeway. So the more you accept what the DM gives you, the more the DM is likely to give you. Like, the more good things the DM is likely to give you. And the more relaxed they're going to be as you're relaxed. But this doesn't mean just accept your fate no matter what happens. This doesn't just mean just roll with every single thing. This means kind of generally 90% of the time just be like, okay, this is how it goes and blah, 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 blah. But you can still pick your battles. If something is truly unfair, like let's say you're walking through the forest and all of a sudden you're ambushed by 70 people, You're like, really? 70? That's a large number, and I have a pretty high perception. Are you sure I didn't notice one of these 70 people hiding in the forest? The DM might be like, well, maybe. If something's wildly unfair, you pick that battle to argue with. But don't approach it like an argument. Don't be like, that's not fair. Approach it like a debate. Like, oh, really? 70 people all just appeared out of nowhere? Is this some sort of magic? Did you remember that I had this blah 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 for my passive perception? I'm an elf. I'm pretty good in the woods, and just approach it like a debate, not like an argument. Don't get all defensive right away and start battling with the DM. Be relaxed, be confident, and present logical reasons why these things might have happened. And if the DM is saying no, trust me, this is how it goes, then you may be like, all right, maybe there's some forces out here that I'm not quite aware of. You generally want to have an easygoing relationship with your DM. The more easygoing you are, the more easygoing the DM is. Also, players are usually the ones that start fights. Players are usually the ones that start fights. There we go. It's a single. This is true. I've been a DM a lot. I've also been I've been a player a lot. And it's usually the players who start the bitching and the whining and the complaining, and nobody likes a little bitch or a whiny bitch. So don't be that player. Don't be the guy who complains about everything, because it lowers the experience for you. It makes it not as fun for you. It makes it not as fun for the other players, and it makes it not as fun for the DM. You don't want to be the guy who goes out camping with all the other guys and is like, oh, we didn't bring any soda? Why didn't we bring soda? Who was in charge of the soda? You surely should have done that. No one likes the person who bitches about everything, complains about everything. People who complain about everything are so fucking annoying. You don't want to be the guy who's like, this isn't the campfire experience I'm hoping for, which, it's funny afterwards, but no one wants the person who's going to complain about things. Don't be that guy. So roll with the punches, accept your fate as a player, and just kind of run with the DM. And when things seem out of place, think about it as like, that's out of place, that's unusual. How can I investigate this further to figure out why this unusual thing is? And hypothesize with your other players about what these unusual things are. That way, if the DM is actually being unfair and actually being a jackass, now they have to defend themselves in-game rather than defending themselves out of game with players. They have to defend themselves to characters, not to players. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I know this doesn't have any these aren't things that you can, not like a set of rules that you can follow. They're a set of like guidelines, and it's a general sense of things. But that's because D&D is not, I know we have rule books, but D&D is actually an interpersonal game. It's all about working with people. It's a social game, and we have to follow social rules in order to make the social game more fun. I wish I could give you like concrete things like, oh, if you take this feat and this feat and this feat, the DM will be nicer to you, but only if you have these stats. No, it's an attitude. It's an approaching the game with a certain sense. So I hope you guys can now approach your games with a little bit more of a relaxed attitude. Let the DM, even when they're being a little lame and a little bit of bullshitty, just roll with it and accept it with a smile on your face, and then the DM will be like, wow, my players are so great. I unfairly ambushed them with 7 people this one time, and it did kill one of the players, but they didn't bitch or complain about it at all. And now they're going off on this other adventure. God, these guys are so great. I just want to make this, I want to like keep things going with them. So we'll make this thing a little bit easier so that we can get to this other area. That's kind of how it goes down. I hope this has been useful for you. I know it's been useful for me. And if you want a really good example of this, watch Dicing with Death. You will see me and Ryan just roll with each other's punches all the way. He'll be like, oh, I think I'm a few pounds overweight here. Well, I guess I'm just going to like dump out my water. And I'll be like, dude, don't even bother dumping out your water. It's fine. Like, you're 2 pounds overweight and we're traveling overland. Whatever, it's fine. Or, I'll just watch Dicing with Death. Watch Dicing with Death. It'll explain everything. That's it for this week. I will see you guys next week, I hope, for another Koibu's Corner, probably also brought to you by the blinding light that surrounds us, because we don't have a backdrop yet. Take care, everybody. Good luck, have fun, and good gaming.